that's Greenhalgh Spencer. So I teach a lot of classes on how to learn and how to teach with technology. And one of the things that I focus on in my research and also in my classes is e-waste. Can you hear me okay? Okay. One of the things that's important, I believe, and this is something we talk about as students, is that when we think about learning with digital technology, when we think about teaching with digital technology, we also have to think about what happens to that digital technology. And so we focus on how e-waste happens, the circle of e-waste, and what are things that as educators we can do. So one of the things we talk about are the ways that e-waste contributes to pollution. It contributes to pollution everywhere, but specifically in the Global South and developing nations. The Global South has a sort of unfair burden because so many of our e-waste, our cell phones, our computers, our old devices are actually dumped in countries in the Global South. You can see some of the contributors in the blue boxes, some of the known e-waste dumping sites in the white boxes. And again, just kind of more arrows about where our e-waste and where Europe's e-waste goes. You can see the Global South sort of bears the brunt. One of the other interesting things is the way gender plays out in this. Often it is women and children who are more affected by e-waste. First of all, because culturally in many of these countries, it's actually the women and the children whose job it is to disassemble some of these devices to find the precious metals in order to sell. But another reason is that, again, culturally speaking, it is often the women and the children who go get water. So they go to wells, often contaminated wells. And so they are more exposed to the toxins that have been produced by e-waste dumping. Okay, that's different. Okay. Hopefully, okay, I don't know what happened there, but we're going to start here. One of the things that we think about as we think about the global crisis of e-waste is we think about, well, what can education do? What kind of interventions can education make? One of the things that's interesting is these are the signatories of the Kyoto Protocol. You'll notice that there are very few non-signatories. The green are the signatories. The red is, and the gray are the people who did not sign it. The yellow, those who are considering it but have not yet ratified it. So US is actually one of the only nations, and definitely the only developed nation, who refused to sign the Kyoto Protocol. And I think this is reflected in, this is research that I've been doing where I've taken databases and laws and policies and sort of amassed them into who is mandating environmental education in their primary and secondary education, who is mandating education for sustainable development in their primary and secondary education. The countries in red are the countries that I have thus far been able to figure out have mandates that you have to have some sort of form of teaching on the environment, on ecology, on sustainable development that includes both jobs production as well as how to help the environment, how to kind of understand and think about ecology as well. And you'll notice that again we have both developing nations and developed nations, but again the US is one of the only developed nations that has not mandated environmental education. Now, part of that is because we don't have a state or like a government, a nation education system. Most of educational decisions and curricular decisions are actually left up to the state. There are a couple of states in the US, Washington State comes to mind, that do actually mandate some form of environmental education. But most of the time, most states do not mandate it. You're not required to teach about it. Even in, like, for example, the science TEKS that we have now, it's optional. It's not required to do that. One of the problems then, of course, with that is it creates a lot of citizens who don't know much about the climate. They don't know much about ecology. They don't know much about the environment and how what we are doing changes the environment. So again, one of the things I do in my courses is I talk about, well, okay, how are we as teachers and educators who use technology, how are we contributing to e-waste, to some of these global problems? And we take some surveys. How many times in the past 15 years have I used any of these devices? How many times have I disposed of these devices? And if you'll just take a moment to kind of think about the last time you got your last cell phone, how long did it last? Where did you take it? What did you do with it? Are you sure that the place that you took it really does recycle them, or were you just hoping that they did? It's kind of we're thinking about what we can do and how we can become educated about how to make interventions into e-waste. And then one of the things that I do is I also encourage my students to think about in their own courses. Some of them, well, all of them are graduate students. Some of them are practicing teachers. Some of them teach undergraduates. And we say, first of all, well, how could you green your course? Are there ways that you could think about how you use technology even in your own classes and think about ways to make greener decisions? And the next thing we think about is how is it that we can start making changes even in the schools where we're at, even if they're not mandated. And some of the projects that some of the students have come up with is recycling collection areas. So the school will actually set up a bin that says, if you want to recycle some of your electronics, come here. We as the school will make sure it gets sent to someplace that is certified to be a recycler of electronics. Another thing is there are various entities that actually take your old cell phone or old other device and they repurpose it for other things. Like cell phones for soldiers actually repurposes your cell phone so that it can be used in satellite bands so that soldiers can call home. And then one of my favorite ones is Hopeline. It allows women who are in domestic violence situations to be able to, without being seen, come pick up a phone, have it with them in case they feel like they would need help and need to get out of the situation. So lots of different ways to kind of rethink how we use our digital devices so that we're not contributing to the e-waste problem, and lots of ways to kind of use these opportunities as a way or as a talking point, as an entrance point for teachers to be able to talk to their students about e-waste and about the ways that digital devices can actually contribute to climate change and changes. And then that's my thing. You can ask questions.